Ready? First thing is we'll start off with apologies and changes
Yes.
in membership, if we have any at all. Megan,
We've had apologies from Councillor Cowley.
right? And that's it.
That's it.
Okay, so like we did last time, we'll note that Councillor Stephen and Councillor Stewart are not here, but we are quorum. So we're good. Thank you for that. Right, minutes of the last meeting. You've all received a copy of those minutes duly circulated. Were there any comments? I'm going to go at some pace today because we've got quite a few things to get through later on, and we've been encouraged to finish in time for people to go off to another meeting, which is 5 till 8, which some people here are involved in.
I'm going off. We're staying, but you're going off.
Oh, I thought they were moving it.
No, it's in here.
Oh, they
It's
kept
in here
in the
again.
same room. Oh, good. Even better.
I'll bring my bed next time.
Right, so I'll move the minutes and look for a seconder from the floor. Thank you, Councillor Brading. Everybody who's eligible to vote on this one, if you signify if you agree with that. It's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest? No. Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Oh, his car was down there.
Started.
Yeah, you're here, Ian.
Over
Ian,
here.
Ian,
Ian.
you're here.
It's talking about the budget again.
Yeah.
Amendments went through. No more comments on the budget. Thank you. So that's all good.
Right.
And we'll move on then to public questions. Do we have any public questions in writing? None in writing. Do we have any submitted on paperwork in the daily? Not yet. Do we have any public questions from the public? Right. Would you like to stand up and introduce yourself?
Councillor Agricola, yes. I've been here before and I'm the same, just for me. As refers to last minutes, under item 66 in the minutes of 5th of February, responsible investment proposal, I couldn't find the ESG policy that it says that you will be reviewing. So it must be somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But there's no date anywhere on that about when you will be reviewing it, a time limit for that review of your ESG policy. And also, you know, bearing in mind the QC's updated opinions, 13th wasn't discussed at that meeting. As I say, when might one expect the ESG and the strategy reviews to be completed as regarding divestment, possibly from banks, companies, Barclays, bookings.com, that are involved anywhere else, I don't really know, that are involved in Israeli activities, especially within the occupied West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem. Bearing in mind Israel appears hell-bent on pursuing Netanyahu's Greater Israel project, annexing and occupying territories not in accordance with international law, not upholding any international obligations as an occupier. The answer is, so far in the future that Mr. Trump will already own Gaza and his seaside paradise for billionaires, already established that displacement, ethnic cleansing, brutal genocide, the Palestinian people, nation, before a decision to disinvest might be made, discussions with the access pool and everybody else, one can assume that the committee accepts that it's okay to carry on as it is now and not really to look at it. What's the point of even looking at it if there's no sort of end before you do anything?
So the question is about the timing of the ESG policy.
When we might ESG and the strategy, when you're going to.
The good news is we have our ESG specialist with us today.
Dominic, if I may, do we need microphones so the guys can hear?
No, I think
On the
it's
slide, or can they hear?
no. I think they're automatic
Yeah.
here. Sorry, can we
can
just check that we can all hear us?
I don't know if they can hear or not. We're up.
Yes.
David? I know Chris could because he talks to it. Yeah, okay, we're good.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And we've agreed to do a policy setting workshop in May of this year.
Will there be an answer at that, or will that just be the first sort of discussion and
So prior to that, there will be some fact finding and questionnaires that will feed into that workshop, and the policy will be drafted from that point on with the limitations of whatever happens with the access pooling proposals, which seem a little bit more uncertain than they previously were. But the policy should be available after the May workshop.
Thank you, Anna. Do you want to add anything to that, Louisa?
Sorry, I had my head down, but yes, that's what I was going to say. So we're already into conversations about it.
And will the fund members be incorporated in this? Is there any questionnaire going out to the fund members?
It's a possibility, and it's something we could take offline with the officers if they want to include member views and how they would best go about doing that. It is something that can be done.
Right,
Yes,
thank you.
thanks. Thank you.
Was there another public question?
Please.
Would you like to introduce yourself and your question, please?
My name's Marilyn Barrett, and I have a specific question actually about the CBRE, Coleman Banker Richard Ellis Real Estates. In the minutes of the 27th of November, item 52, it was to receive and note the verbal update in progress. Minutes recorded Betty received the confidential verbal presentation from Hyman's Robertson's Investment, which provided an update on the progress implementing the investment strategy. It was advised that the fund was still waiting for clarity on the access property mandate with CBRE. No comments or questions were raised. Resolved that the update be received and noted. CBRE.
So could I ask you what the question is, please?
Yes, I'm just getting through to that. The question is, will the committee guarantee that scheme members' funds are not invested in any connection with Israel's illegal occupation in Palestine or any of the illegally occupied Palestinian territories? If the committee are unable to answer this question at this time, will they please commit to researching this matter further, provide an answer? Because CBRE presented at the Goldman Sachs Financial Services Conference multiple times. Goldman Sachs is a benefactor of illegal Jewish settlers in Hebron. And it's also noted that Goldman Sachs gave a presentation at the Barclays 21st Annual Global Financial Services Conference on the 12th of September 1923.
Right, thank you for your question.
Thank you.
I think this is covered by the first one that we had, which is very closely related to it, that we are in the process of drafting a policy. And I think you've heard what the process is over the next couple of months to do that. And I'm sure as soon as that comes out, it will be published.
So we will be able to know whether the members' funds are invested in CBRE, and if that's
The first step is the development of the policy, which is the first thing that's coming along. So that's the first step that we've got. I think we have done quite a lot of work in terms of analysis along that way, and that will be continuing.
Thank you.
Did you want to add something, Emma?
Yeah, just to let you know that the CBRE property mandate is a UK core mandate that invested only in UK properties, but the due diligence and selection of that manager and mandate has been done by Access, not the fund itself. So it's Access that have done the selection of that mandate and fund and would do the analysis in the background. That's just what's available through the pool for the fund to invest in UK property.
Yeah. So just to add a little bit to the answer, you do understand that we invest in funds who themselves invest often in funds. So we're often, it's quite difficult to work, and they change their investments on a regular basis. So
lots of research has been
several steps away
with the United Nations, the International Criminal Court, all sorts of and all the humanitarian organisations who have provided witness statements as to what is happening in their areas.
So specifically, we're limited to the discussion here of the funds. So we invest in the access. If you're not familiar, we invest in a pooling system which is Access, and Access invest in a number of different entities on the back end. Some of those are investing in other people. So to do the analysis is not a simple process, and the investments do change all the time. So it is an ongoing situation. But the first thing is for us to have a policy in place, and that, as you've heard, is in progress. Yeah, thank you. Steve?
If it's helpful, if I can make just a quick comment. Steve Milford, I'm the Unison representative on the Pensions Committee. I'm a non-voting member, but I would hope to be at the workshop in May. And presumably we would need a committee meeting shortly following that to actually establish any policy that came out with the workshop suggestions. As a member of Unison, I represent a number of scheme members, although not the public as large, but of the people that actually have got their pensions vested in this in the current LGPS scheme. A problem has been getting a policy. The current policy does actually say we have the right to divest from a particular sector or a particular company if we so chose to do. And I appreciate that would be very problematic with where we are with access, but that is as far as our current policy goes. And I think it would be helpful if we got representations from people like yourselves as to which specific companies or sectors you think we shouldn't be investing in on the grounds that you've described, because that has been a problem so far, actually identifying a company that is, you know, guilty, if you like, other than the ones that are more general, do the business over a whole range of areas. So I'm looking forward to taking part in that.
Thank you, Steve. I think it's also an issue for the pension board, if I may open it up. You know, we're talking about a policy decision here as well. So it's not something that any one individual will be taking for. And I like committee systems generally. The whole council is moving to them. And so broadening the topic is beneficial. And I'm sure I'd like to Martin, and hopefully he would agree with that, and it being an item for the pension board on their deliberations. Good. Thank you, Martin. Steve?
Yeah, just on that point, I think the part of the discussion we had last time on this issue was around it's very difficult to have a definitive list of companies and their connections because there's no single author of the truth, as it were, and some of the companies dispute those connections as well. So it can be quite hard to establish what exactly is the nature of those connections. So that's the first point I was going to raise. Secondly, I was just going to the committee. I don't want to say too much because from memory serves it's a part 2 discussion that we had. Certain decisions already made about the property holdings, and to take those forward, action. So that will happen before some of the May discussions that are subject to advice from our colleagues and Robertson as well.
Yes, but I think we were talking specifically about the generation of the policy document at this stage. So
Yes.
to keep it at that level. Louisa?
And I think there's only one extra bit to add on to that, which is just a reminder of everybody, we are a member of LAPFA. I'll have to remind myself of what it stands for, but it's a group of people that come together, and it's I don't know whether you're familiar with them, it's an organisation, and every week they send us an update on how they're engaging with these companies. And there's an opinion that rather than just divesting, you actually engage with them to force change. So we are a member of this group, and we receive updates every week. I've got one in my inbox here so I can see what they're doing. And they recognise that it's not just Middle East issues. There are issues happening around the world generally around conflict areas. So it's a wider issue, and they have quite a set structure of questions they go in and ask, where they try to force change and engage with the top CEO and different people. So I listened to the one last week because it was topical about Middle East. So we're not ignoring it. We are very much engaged in it, and we are listening. And as we are a member of this group, and there's actually a template, so we can share that with you, which shows you the types of questions that we are asking of these CEOs. And if there's anything you want to feed back, we could feed that back into this forum. They are getting one-on-one conversations with. It's not the Middle East issue. They talk about other things like, for example, sweatshops and, you know, wider ESG issues generally that they want to hold companies to account for. So I just wanted to raise that and make you aware of that.
The name of the.
It's called LAPFA. LAPFF. Thank you.
Another accent. Thank you, Louisa. Right. David, did you answer? Oh, you've got your hand up, David.
Yes, Chair. So LAPFA is the Local Authority Pension Fund Forum, which trips off the tongue. The other point I'd say, I know there was a question there or a reference to members' asset or benefits being invested in certain assets. I would technically, there's a governance point about the link between the pension benefits or the separation of that and the assets of the pension fund. The members' benefits are deferred pay and benefits. The assets are invested in a way to ensure the affordability. So there is a question of the direct link there of the assets, which I know the Scheme Advisory Board covered in some of the recent reviews on the Sharia compliance of the scheme or otherwise. So I think it's important there isn't a direct link with the assets and members' benefits in that way. It's just a point of clarification.
Thank you, David. Just to note that Councillor, for the record, Councillor Stewart's arrived as well.
Apologies for being late.
Good to see you. Right, so moving on the agenda then, no, nothing else under number 4. Number 5 is the governance update.
Thank you. So I think this was the deferred item from last time because we ran out of time.
Yeah, there were 2.
I will keep it quite short and sweet because the main item on the agenda is really the future, what's happening with the pooling. So, I mean, it was in the pack. The big item really that is moving is the fit for the future. So within the paper is the risk register. So, and thank you very much. You will note, if you've seen that on the risk register, number 1 is stewardship responsibilities in ESG. So we have noted that it is high red risk and we are doing, hopefully you've got some reassurance, we are doing things about it. Climate change is our second one on the risk register. So again, we do acknowledge, and the board remind us as well regularly. Thanks, board. So yeah, there are a couple of other risks in the pack you'll notice. So knowledge and expertise of everybody. So we have sessions, try to keep you up to speed on different topics. But we do appreciate that obviously there's pensions covers a broad, there's a massive spectrum from finance to ESG to employers to valuations. There's a lot of topics to cover. So trying to keep everybody up to speed is a challenge that we'll face together. Again, generally just employers, we talked about strictly, that's on their operational capacity for a small team. On our radar, we keep an eye on that. Pension fund accounts, we lost Joe, as you know, but we do have a replacement, but that is still there because obviously they're getting under the table and getting their feet under the table. And then again, just as you can see, the role of government policy. So that's a high risk in terms of government telling us what to do and then work out what to do next. So that's a big topic for today. So hopefully that's cantered through the risk register. It is in there. If there's any other areas that you feel could be on the risk register, please let us know. But those are the top ones that we're keeping an eye on at the moment. There is a tracker as well at the back, legislation and regulation tracker. It covers different areas, things like dashboard and the cloud. So just we cover that quite a lot at the board. It gives quite a detailed update on the cloud. There will be things going out in August on people's annual benefit statements. There's loads of work being done. I know we don't get a lot of airtime at the committee around that, but it's just to give you some assurance. Trackers in the back, so you can hopefully, because there's so much moving with legislation, it's to give you some assurance. So if you did have a topic like ESG or McLeod or any of these other areas, you can keep an eye on it and see and hold us to it.
Through you.
Yeah.
Chris.
Yes, Councillor Stevens.
Page 19, I've had 3 attempts and I can't read that.
Oh, sorry.
I'm terribly sorry, but you know, it's great having the matrix as well, but I think that, you know, I'd like.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to go through it, but if you could forward.
Yeah.
Electronically, that is, then I could.
Yeah, I'd
go
appreciate
into
that as well.
information.
I can't read that.
I don't want you to go through line by line.
No, apologies. I didn't realize that.
Can I suggest something for all of our benefit here that I appreciate that it fits onto one table, it fits down at 4 point. But even with the magnifying glass, it becomes a little difficult. I can just about make it out. My eyesight's not perfect.
So I think
So could we in future just have some sort of minimum, maybe 8 points?
I think in the other paper we tried to pull out the main one.
Oh yeah, that's got to be at least 10 or 12, isn't it?
No, could I,
But we're in the appendix that's at the back.
Chairman, may I say that technically speaking, council stuff should be printed in not less than 12 and it should be 14 points.
All right, there we go. I didn't know we had a regulation about point size, but apparently we do.
Oh, yes,
It's good.
it
Thank
did.
you for
Yeah.
Vanessa for reminding me of that. So there we go.
Yeah,
Sorry.
We'll comply with the minimum Isle of Wight Council policy on point size.
yeah, apologies. I think, yeah, so in the cover report, it's got the main ones, but
Yeah.
in the appendix, we will make sure any appendix that's attached
Yeah.
is also.
Well, mate, I think the reason you quite rightly full print size highlighted the high ones,
Yeah.
so we can discuss those.
Yeah.
But to me, it's more some of the medium ones that could go either way.
Yeah.
That's the issues we should also be looking at. Mediums could go to low,
Yeah.
and those mediums could go to high, and yeah.
Exactly.
So I think that's the reason it would be useful. We can sort of say, well, you know, item number 6, well, 5, you've got as medium. That is got to be close to high. So it's the medium sort of ones that stand out as much as the high ones, I think.
That's a good point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, so as I said, and then so there is then a tracker at the back. We managed to get to, I think, page it is in your document, but the regulation update tracker.
There she's something I suspect.
But ESG perspective, I'd used my papers from last time, apologies, so I didn't have to print again to save the trees. Sorry.
25, I think.
Page 25, yes. So I wasn't proposing going through all of them. As I say, it's an appendix at the back. It's there to, if there are topics that you need, if you want to follow in particular, because I know, for example, Steve, you like to keep an eye on McLeod for members and dashboard and connectivity. And each of you will have different areas that you're interested in. So it's a tracker. We always provide an update every meeting to say what's moved on, what we've done internally. There isn't enough time to often to cover all these things in our meetings, but it is our way of trying to be transparent with you to explain what's happening and how we're trying to keep on top of the legislation. And as received by the length of the tracker, that there is a lot of moving areas that we do keep an eye on. So it's more of an assurance. The reason it's in there is for assurance. If you ever have any questions, please let us know. Big one, really, as I say, is the Fit for Future one, which we'll be coming on to in a second. I will flag that I was at a conference at the beginning of this year in January, and a warning that there is a second phase of Fit for Future coming, and it's all about equality and fairness. It'll be more like things like gender pay gap, be about the Goodwin case coming up again. So there'll be a lot of things that go back to the admin team around reviewing old cases, old case law. But we'll have to wait for the government to tell us what that means and the impact of some of those areas. But it is the second thing that's on the government's agenda, apart from the investment pooling side of things. It will then come back to fairness and equality. We'll have to look at that. So that's just one to have in the back of your mind. It's on our radar, keeping an eye, but the government's pushing first on the investment pooling side, and then it will come to fairness.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I
think
think it's very good. So
Yeah, it's very
shows
good.
how many times you have to chase, follow up, chase and follow. But it's good to see that, you know, things are moving.
I think in combination with the enhanced training requirement, we're going to have members queuing up.
Oh,
The annual meeting. Welcome, to be on the pension committee.
Yeah.
I can see it now. Councillor Stephen.
And on that note, Chair, I think I found the informal training was an extreme benefit. And I think that, while we're meeting here, and we're going through the training you've given and you brought forward, Chairman, it has been one that we should be not just for the pension committee, but as I said last evening, we need to make sure that members familiarise themselves with what there is and how we're processing things and some of the fallout that does happen. And I think that this is a point in process that we can't discuss every element within these reports at a committee meeting, but what we can do is take them away and work on them informally. I think that's what we thought.
If there's any if you'd like to do a deep dive into any areas, for example, the board are asking us to do that, for example, at the next meeting, we're doing a deep dive into transfers out and scams on behalf of members so they can understand that process because it's a high risk area. So they call out areas that they would like to know more about. We then explain what the regulations are and what needs to be done. And then, for example, we say what we're actually doing. And then it's up to them, at least we're informing the board. So they're telling them what we should be doing. Then they're marking our homework. and then also advising us from a member's perspective and just a common sense perspective.
Yeah.
Does that quite work, and what are you doing, and could you do more in that area? So, you know, that's how it's working with the board at the moment. They call out topics and we come, and same as yourselves, you know, the Middle East topic's been running for a while, ESGs, that's a good one. But if, yes, so there's a tracker document there, and then if there are any areas that are of interest, as I say, I will just mention to McLeod, big thing to take away, August, it will be going out and benefit statements. If any of your members and constituents ask about that, and then we'll know the fallout after that. Dashboards, the main thing is that from our perspective, we just have to be connected with the technology by October. That's the government requirement. But it doesn't mean to say that the big dashboard project, which is about if you've got pensions held in different pots, the government's doing a big thing where you can go in and view all of them in one place. That does not mean to say it's going to be going live in October. We're all waiting. We don't know when that's actually going to go live for members of the public. It's up to the government. We don't know when when that's going to happen. It may be a year, 2, we don't know. But our requirement is just to make sure the technology is connected and they can see into our pensions. So again, we're on track for that. So if you hear the word dashboard, we're on track.
Yep.
Goodness knows what's happening with the government side of things and when members will actually benefit from this.
A question, so Matt, probably a question to you on this one. That's linked in with the new automated reporting into the inland revenue, is it, for where it pops up automatically on tax returns, for example?
I'm not sure how, well, what it links into. At the moment, all I'm looking at is how we connect to dashboard. And that we've actually procured through Hayward's to actually, and we've got a plan in place to make sure that we have the connection by the 31st of October this year. So I don't know what the wider plan is for it, but it could very well be that yes, it links in.
I'm sure many of us will see it anyway, and individually where,
Yeah.
you know, all the pension information is automatically passported through into
Yeah.
inland revenue calculations. We'll all get that now. Okay, Steve.
Yeah, thanks. If I could ask just a couple of questions. Firstly, when I'm pleased that the it's going out in member statements, benefit statements in August about the McLeod judgment. Could we have a sort of one line insertion for everyone? Either you are affected by the McLeod judgment and this is what you need to do. 2, it says you're not affected by the McLeod judgment, you don't do anything. So everyone knows that they've actually been.
That's something we're working on with Hayward's at the moment. Obviously, it's a complicated way of doing something. So how to get that information onto the annual benefit statement. But rest assured, those that have benefit from it will be told the benefit from it. So I'm not sure if we can do the negative things, say that you'll stop, but it will come through that they can see both options. So they'll be able to choose.
And in some cases, there will be a retrospective tax liability associated with that.
Yes.
Which is, yes, which may mean, because I've been reading up on it, it may mean that if you've got a backdated entitlement, which is being retrospectively applied, that you may have to represent previous year's tax calculations because your income in those years may have been treated differently. May not have been, maybe that you can treat the entire benefit with the current tax year, but that's a thing to note for people as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Steve, you had a second question,
Yes,
Steve.
would you
and then
want
I'll
to
go to Vanessa.
just explain quickly what the implications are for members of the abolition of the lifetime allowance? I think I understand what it is, but I can't understand how it's.
Well, right. So the lifetime allowance was 1.073 million. So if you exceeded that, then you were taxed on the benefit above that, depending whether you took it as a lump sum or whether you took it as income. The reason is that now they've taken that away, but you're only limited on the tax-free lump sum. So it's a lump sum allowance now, which is now rigid at 25% of the old lifetime allowance. So it's your lump sum that's the issue. So we have to issue certificates to confirm what we've paid out, so that if you've got pensions elsewhere, then you don't exceed. So previous or the pension that you're taking out now knows that you've had X amount of lump sum.
So every pension body at the moment, when they deal with your pension calculations and payments, they have to indicate on there now
Have to indicate.
what the percentage calculation is of
Yes.
that individual pension. and it's up to you as an individual to add them all together because
Yeah.
they wouldn't necessarily know the other ones.
No, so we've had a few requests for them. So we have to give out the information of what we've actually released in the lump sum, so that they can have their lump sum released from the other pension. It's just to make sure that they don't exceed 25% of the old lifetime allowance.
Okay.
So the maximum you can have, I think, is 268,000.
Yeah.
So if you had 200,000 somewhere else, you've got 100,000 somewhere else, you can't take it all. So you're limited on just the 268,000.
Okay.
So they need to know what you've had in previous pension pots to be able to access and give you the money.
I'm assuming all this will be in whatever does come out to people to inform them. So I see Steve was taking an awful lot of notes there.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's, yes, yeah.
I think the complication is going to be there's only so much that we can do
Yes.
as a pension fund, isn't there? So much more of it would, because we will not have the visibility, the totality of visibility for any individual. So we can give them our part of the information, but the individual then has to take their own individual responsibility of what the consequences are.
Yeah, and if you look at the rules and regulations, it's quite complex how to do it. So
Vanessa.
Yes, I was going to raise the point at a conference I went to, somebody who's very senior, it said it took them 8 days of really hard work to get onto the dashboard. So my question is, are the Isle of Wight going to be inundated with requests for help from pensioners who are trying to, you just said it's a bit complicated. Have we the staff, have we the ability to be able to help our pensioners to deal with the dashboard?
not at the moment, we don't know. So we don't know what level of, because initially when they release it, we're going to have quite a few inquiries. So I don't know how the level of inquiries we've got, but I don't think the team we've got at the moment will be able to manage that. It could be that we use the contact centre as part support to help field the calls.
We don't know the connect. We don't know.
We don't know.
It's going to go
No,
live,
no.
and also they've got us online first, but they haven't got all the other
Yes.
pension schemes online. So they've got another wave of work they're going to have to do with other pension schemes out there. They've pushed for ours to go first, but they're going to have to try and connect with the other pension schemes the following year. So goodness knows when the actual go live date will be.
It'd be interesting to see how it works, to be honest. So, but yeah, we're going to be connected by the 31st of October in place. And Haywoods are working with us to do that. So they're ticking the box for us.
Yeah.
If I may, Chair, I think I just want to flag up the fact that we could well be inundated, especially when you have so many, what I would call now very elderly pensioners who might have started their pensions 20 years ago. And I know from my own ward, lots of my constituents don't have broadband, they don't go on computers, they're not going to have a clue.
They won't be able to go on it. So I think, yeah, I agree with you. It's the issue you've got is you can only access it online. So there may be many people that don't have, like you say, broadband or a computer or whatever that can't access it. But that's not an issue for us. That's an issue for the government. And I can foresee not just the queries. I can foresee there being an avalanche of people looking to consolidate all their pensions together in one place, which will create quite a bit of a drive for the market. See, we are limited to, person has to be in scheme for 12 months, in the first 12 months of being in the scheme to transfer the benefits. So we won't be able to accept it, but I can foresee us getting quite a lot of inquiries to transfer out, people wanting to transfer our benefits somewhere else. So it's going to be complicated.
Okay, good food for thought there. So the questions have dried up, which is good. Nothing else on number 5. We'll move on to number 6 then, which is also a deferred item, the knowledge and understanding update from last time. Louisa again.
Yeah, so it's just thank you very much. The last time you approved the training policy or knowledge development policy. The idea of that is just to bring everything in one place. I don't think there's anything new in this report. As I said, I think it was a hang on last one. It does, I think this did have in the back, in the appendix, it's got the training that's happened previously, if I remind myself. You did have some, obviously, thank you very much, Ian Stevens, for your feedback on the informal training we've been doing on the proving side of things, getting you up to speed with the property stuff. So we're trying to capture that, because then obviously when we write the annual report, we want to put in there that these training sessions have happened. So thank you very much. I think then, as I say, in the appendix, I think if I'm honest, that is kind of your training plan in a nutshell. If you haven't seen that slide. So it's a nice one pager, sets it out. And what we try to do often is direct a lot of your training to the current issues, like Fit for Future, that's aligned to what's happening now. But there is this body underneath, which is meant to underpin it all, and you actually know what it does, evaluation and stuff. So that's what those topics are meant to help you with. So on that, with that regard, on these topics underneath that, as I say, is an expectation you have a base knowledge in on across the different areas. There is Hyman's do have an online portal where you can go in, so you can dip in when you have free time. I'll wait for the last later. So when you've got that free time, it's an online learning and you can dip in. So if we talk about a topic like administration and we're doing a bit more of a deep dive into what the admin team are doing, if you wanted to, you could go on there and you could do, and there's like a short video you could watch and to get up to speed a bit more about what the nuts and bolts are and what the pension regulator expects and what we have to do as a fund. So rather than us trying to cover it in a topic when we're all in the room, if there are areas you want to go into. So that would just come at an additional cost of £4,000 for everybody to go in and have a license to go in and access that material. The board already have access to that. They've been doing it for a number of years. So it would be great to extend that out to committee members, another resource to help you and to demonstrate that have facilities in place. And I appreciate we can't get it all into all of our meetings, so there is a bit of sometimes self-help, and we can try and help as well directly.
And I think that so far the training has been very valuable. Of course, we had this session as well on IT security as well, which so that was very useful. I'm assuming I look across at Matt at this stage with these changes that are coming through later in the year. Will we be able to get some training on those as well?
I'm sure you can, yeah.
I think it would be very valuable for the committee to know what the actual status is and the implications and what's going out to the beneficiaries, at least concurrent, if not slightly before that messaging actually goes out, necessary for us to understand what the consequences are. I'm not expecting everybody to become a tax specialist, by the way, but I think they are quite important changes, both those and the government ones, which are echoing down the line. Were there any questions on this one of Louisa? Councillor Brady.
I think, as you quite rightly said, we need to have a base knowledge across the board, and you're right. My question is, what is base knowledge? Because, if we were to have a base knowledge on all of these 15 topics, you won't get any members, it won't get any councillors on the pension committee, because I've got time to, and
I suppose it's
so
day
it's based knowledge, and if we need a certain level of knowledge, the only way we're going to do this is to have a structured program of training throughout the next 12 months. So rather than say, go and do this, in case of come in, we're going to do this. I think the lead has to be taken by the chair and yourself to make us do this training, because sit and do pension training at home, it's going to be hard.
And I think
That's exactly what we were going to come.
We need a structure.
At the next meeting was a suggestion.
Which isn't going to work.
Yeah.
we have looked at this in the past. We've actually talked to Hyman's about, we could go to something like the Holmwood, we could go there for a day, and then we could bring the admin team in, so we can cover what they do in their session, already expected. So we'll do it like 30 minutes, this is what's required. Then we'd actually show case studies of actually how this feeds into our actual admin team.
Yeah.
We'd invite our admin team in to come in, and that would cover off the admin bits. We can just put a big tick in the box there. Investment products, again, there'll be strategy days, and actually we're moving into the access pool. It's likely that there'll be an investment strategy day that you'd be invited to go and talk to all the investment advisors in the room. If you want to find out more about property investments, ESG products, social affordable housing products.
There was some training we did, wasn't there? We did a 100 question training module a little while ago, and it gave us a little
Yeah, right.
pie chart, you know.
Quite a while back. yeah.
That was the last bit of, you know, but no, I thought I had a good knowledge of pensions, or base knowledge, as you refer to it. I found it bloody difficult to do, to be honest. And I thought I had a good base knowledge of, after being on the committee for 8 years, I thought I had a good base knowledge of, you know, pensions, but it was really hard. Yes, you get the answers given to you. And if I did the test again, I get 100% because I printed off the answers that they gave. So, but that's why you still work. So, but you know, I thought I had a good knowledge. I think I got some 60 odd % or something. But it did stretch your thinking. It took about 3 hours to do. And sitting at home doing it is just, oh no, you know, another complicated question I don't understand. So the training event, if you like, with everyone attending, and as Councillor Steve said, I think other councillors to attend as well.
Yeah.
That way they might think, well, I've done the training, I'll join a pension, because filling, you know, we never ever have everyone attending a pension meeting. Never have.
So I think we're on the same
So,
page
yeah,
here.
I think you're right.
We really are on the same page. And we did say previously to open it up to all members, not just the ones who are on the pension committee, because we have substitutes as well, and we need that
Yeah.
degree of resilience in the future. So no, I think we're on the same page. Of course, it's not just that the base level of knowledge, it's also the incremental knowledge, because so many things are changing. And so getting onto the first rung of the ladder is very useful, but we do have to accept that we're in a bit of a moving feast here. And certainly this year, I think there are going to be a lot of developments. Right.
So we try to bring the hot topics, but there is the under level, and that's why we try to do the
Base knowledge training and other things as they crop up.
Yeah. And I think it was particularly valuable when we had the session where we had, you know, some sandwiches and then online discussion and training as well. I think that was very well attended. And quite an eye opener. We all learned a lot from that. So if we're able to schedule those days in the future, that would be particularly useful, where, you know, we have the meeting and then we adjourn and maybe half an hour break and then we carry on, because everybody's here already. You know, we don't have to come in a second time to do something special.
Used to, wasn't it?
And
what we used to
and
do.
to invite both the committee and the board, so everybody can gain from that at the same time. Any other questions of Louisa at this point? So we'll move the recommendations then. Is everybody happy accept those, which are on page 37 at the bottom?
Yeah.
I'll move them. I'll look for
I'll
a
second
second there.
Yeah.
Councillor Grading, everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Louisa. Right. We now come on to members' question time. This is your opportunity, councillors, to ask all those difficult questions the other way. Who'd like to go first? Seems there.
I'll go first.
Oh, we got one.
So, staffing's always been a concern of ours about the extra pressures being put on. I know one of the risks on there you mentioned about change of money education, change of supply, that sort of thing. You know, these can create extra pressures. Everything that happens in the education sector creates extra pressures. And last night's full council in Leeds report, it mentioned about strictly education, and now, you know, dropped off the HR and pension support on the island, and the council picking up the slack for that. And I raised the question last night: have we got enough staff in the council to cope with, you know, just help support some of the schools? I think it's 11 schools that strictly education dropped. They now having HR and council support on payrolls and stuff. It's not going to have a knock-on impact on the work that everyone in the council does. So, you know, staffing is always a concern. It fits in with the budget pressures. You know, have you guys got enough with the change you've got coming, and Matt potentially or might not be going or whatever? Have we really got the resilience in the team to cope with the changes that are coming?
With regards to the Strictly, we're almost up to date with the data. So we were months behind with it. So we've got February's data in this month. And we're looking for March's data by middle of April, which will mean that we'll have all the data that we need. With regards to the change, yes, there's a few issues with changing payroll references, because that's a manual thing, but we're talking to Haywoods about doing that. But it's a positive that most of the schools have come back to the council.
Yeah.
Because we have a relationship with the iConnect monthly data portal that the Isle of Wight Council are very competent with. So we did used to find the strictly education was an issue with data, was an issue with actually uploading the data. But we've now got more of a control, more of a hand and more of a relationship with the Isle of Wight Council payroll team. So from my point of view, don't see it being too much of an issue.
Good to hear. I think all 11 schools have moved back to the council.
Yes.
And another provider, haven't they?
Yes.
Good.
Which we're communicating with the other schools about the provider they're going with.
Yeah.
So we will be obviously onboarding their new provider to iConnect so that we can have monthly data.
Steve?
Yeah, if we could just add to that, we have just at the beginning of the year appointed an interim accountant, financial accountant, to help us out because the previous post holder left to join another authority. We have made that appointment on a full-time basis to supply some extra resource, and part of what I want to do with that person is to kind of flesh out what the full-time workload will be, as it were. So we're not jumping in saying it's a full-time person recruiting, forever and a day now. We're testing it out with an interim person who, if it all works well, can also document exactly what they do. So it's easier when we do recruit permanently for someone to step into their shoes. So conscious of the resource issue, trying to kind of move in that direction by putting a bit of extra resource there on the accountancy side and flesh it out with this interim resource we've got in place currently.
I don't generally like it interims, but at least for an interim, you've got a chance to mould the role, haven't you, a little bit, and add a few things onto it, and make sure the role that they may eventually get
Yes,
is what we need.
exactly. That's precisely the thinking.
Okay.
From an administration point of view, just mentioned that we've taken on 2 new trainees, so they've been in the role for 2 months. Very well. I've also appointed an assistant manager, Leslie Payne, who's been with the team for about 6 years. So we're in a strong position. I'd like to go out and recruit for another trainee, which I've got permission to do at some point. So we just need the new trainees to get their feet under the table, and then we'll bring in another trainee. So I'm very positive about how we're moving forward, which gives us more flexibility, not just to do the day-to-day stuff, but also there's quite a few projects, as you can see, McLeod, all those other issues that we've got that we're doing, dashboard and everything else, that we can actually move those further forward, which we're doing now.
And succession planning as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Other questions? Vanessa?
How many people do we actually have in the pensions administration scheme here on the island? And I include Steve now, obviously. And how many are we short? I know you've talked about we've taken on trainees, but do we actually have a full complement of staff at the moment to deal with everything that is going on?
From an administration point of view, I just need to recruit 1 more trainee. I couldn't get the right. When I recruit for the right person, and I could only get 2 that I thought would suit the team. So I've had to sort of put the other one on hold. But yeah, from an administration point of view, for day-to-day running and some of the projects we're doing, we're quite well staffed. The issue we've got is what's the fallout from all the other bits like dashboard and everything else is something that there's I'm conscious of, but the problem is I don't know where to go with it. But it's something that we'll probably have to have a discussion with to look at, is there another option that we can bring some team in to support us with that, rather than just recruit just for that short period of time to get through the interim bit of the dashboard being updated. And
Oh, that's good to know.
So what's the FTE, the full-time equivalent, I think was the questioning.
we've got,
Steve.
okay,
3 of us,
yeah, including me.
Spencer.
I've got 8, including me, plus a 0.2. 8.2.
That's 11. Just over 11, isn't it, between us?
That's better than it's been in the past, though, isn't it? That's
We're down to about 4, I think.
Yeah, we were. Yes.
Any other questions? Councillor Stewart?
You talked about equal pay, and obviously there has been the very large case over in Birmingham. Is there any areas where you have concerns that you might not have information about possible issues arising? what I'm thinking is, you know, the standard sort of, is there a known unknown? Which we don't have a handle on at the moment.
I don't know if we're gonna,
It would be a council pension fund.
well, so the Goodwin case, so I think
Yeah.
some of the cases the governments talk about, it's a bit like the McLeod judgment. We have to wait until it comes through. I mean, Martin, you'll probably smell some of this stuff. So there was the McLeod judgment, and then they told us how that affects the local government pension scheme. So whilst there has been case law in other areas like the Goodwin case, etc., we don't know how that actually applies to this scheme because it's run government. So we're waiting for that guidance to come through. Then there might be some retrospective calculations that would have to be done again around another piece of case law. So that on the gender pay gap is a slightly different one. And that's more about, obviously, their concerns about people opting out, not coming back into the scheme. You know, that is more of an employer issue rather than a fund issue.
Yeah.
What it's really going to impact onto us is we're going to have to report the numbers. There's they're going to be number crunching. They're coming to Matt seemed to ask, but what are your numbers? And we'll be having to strip reports off. But the big thing, as you know, with all that gender pay stuff, is what you're actually going to do about it. We can't do anything, but we have to try and communicate with our employers.
That's what I was trying to get at. Sorry,
So
I'm not being very clear.
It's going to be quite limited, but then they'll probably try and look at our members' communication. Are we doing enough? Are we communicating enough? Are we encouraging people back into the scheme and all those things? So I think the government are aware of how good the scheme is. It's, are we communicating that out to members? And anyone that is going on maternity leave and other things like that, are we encouraging them back? So that's kind of where it's all going, apart from obviously actual
to the employer to do that.
calculations and stuff. So yeah, so it's going to be a partnership. It's going to be us working with the employers.
Yeah. It's the employer mainly.
But it's coming through us.
That needs to be doing that.
Yeah.
And we'll obviously support that. But it's their scheme. So it's what is the Isle of Wight Council going to, as employer, doing to entice people to the scheme?
Yeah.
But we might have to put disclosures into our annual report
Yeah.
and things like that. So it's difficult because we're going to have to make statements about this.
It's what I'm asking for is probably a little unfair. I know. But what I'm I have to say that and the chair will really said this. It is actually good from our side to actually see the steps that you've already taken to actually seize control of the sort of administration and management of some of the things coming through. It's just that sometimes there are issues which you may be aware of might arise, which may not necessarily directly impact on the pension scheme itself, but will have an impact within the local authority.
Okay.
And so I'm always, is there a black swan event which you can see on the horizon which nobody else can see?
If I could review and then I'll come back to you next time.
Yeah.
There's a couple of areas that we flagged that might impact other teams in the council. That's we're aware of. Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions then, I'll read the required notice, which is to consider passing a resolution that under section 100A4 of the, or yes, A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for a following item of business, namely agenda item 9, on the grounds that there is likely to be a disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1 of 3, of part 1, Schedule 12A of the Act, and in all the circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Suggest that motion and look for a second. Thank you, Vanessa. Everybody in favour? Right, good. Thank you very much. We now have to exclude the public and